Thanks for joining me today. And we're going to be going through Reactive UI Events. And if you've never come across it before, it is a stupidly cool package. And the interesting thing about it, it's got very little to do with Reactive UI. It has everything to do with a couple of patterns from reactive extensions. So, without further ado, we have a Slack channel for those who are joining us for the first time. If you go to reactiveui.net/Slack, you'll get a run through the process of getting invite. I'd love to see you in there. So please go there, reactiveui.net/Slack. We have a brand new website, if you haven't seen it yet, which is kind of cool since the last meetup. And one of the key things about this website is it creates a single place where you can go to see when the next meetup is on. And as you're on this journey of learning reactive programming, one of the things I found hardest is actually having people to speak to learn this, because it requires a different style of thinking. So this is the point of the meetup, is to bring people together throughout the world just talk about these things. It's not just about presentations. So we have a presentation, kind of like a draw card to come to the event, but really it's about the conversations before and afterwards. So please stay on afterwards. New website.
Just let me say that this new website is quite amazing. Thank you for doing that. It's really better than the last one.
Thanks, Giuseppe. It's something interesting about software now in general. You see it with anything that Facebook's putting out, is making good software is not enough. You now need to double down on marketing, and mind share of software developers is done by marketing. And so we needed a new website. I took quite a few concepts from the ASP.NET Live website. So this is a fork from there. So this is what Scott Hanselman does. It's still the same format. And likewise, the design was from Haskell.org, because I've always loved their website, and it was open source. So thanks, Haskell guys. All right, the community shoutouts. Ollie, seriously, man, you've been through it. You've seen why I've been putting it off. He has converted Reactive UI to the new project structure, and it is amazing. But
Woo! Thanks, Ollie.
Ollie,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's like, so let's show you what this actually means.
If anyone wants help doing it on other projects, let me know, but I might not do it again.
You may not do it again. Is that right? Yes. Well, if you do, not on
It's not
something
that
that's
bad,
complicated. Okay. So,
I was asking what he did to get some stuff like that into Akavash, but I gave up pretty fast because I was working on a Mac.
yeah. Yep. So Akavash is coming. I'll probably do that myself, based on what I've learned from Ollie. So one of the things he's done, which is super cool. We used to have lots of different types of projects, so one project per platforms, and it became a bit of like kind of a real hell to maintain. Like Kent can tell you some war stories, and
Terrible.
it's just terrible. And this new project structure, if you've never seen it before, I really encourage you to pull it open, just have a look. It is really, really cool. Find the right folder. Here it is. You can actually specify a target framework, and that this project supports. And the cool thing here is you can conditionally include things based on the target framework. So for UWP, if it is UWP, we include these files. And the cool, interesting thing about this new project structure is you can specify wildcards, and anything in the project directory comes by default. And this has been really handy for our project, because at times we've gone through and refactored and we forgot to delete a file, but it's been removed from the project. So it's kind of like we had all this garbage and litter, and it's like surfaced as we've done this. So we've actually maintained a clean file system and a clean project. So that's been really cool. But this is probably the cake. Ollie, you outdid yourself on this. What he did was he split each one of the platforms up into individual folders. It was kind of like that before, but it's split into the individual TFMs, or the framework monikers, like the actual targets that we were targeting. And it just makes working in this source just so much easier from the file system and from the project. And there's another PR open right now that splits the platform registrations, and we're just slowly unwinding the project from being all defined in a single place where it makes sense. So thank you, Ollie. Love your work.
Thank you.
All right, so we're here today to go through Reactive UI Events. Went through some deep internals of this in the last year and a half, trying to figure out how it all works. If you have particular questions, happy to go through and explain what it is and how it works. Encountered some very weird things with it, but it's actually super cool. The best way to actually show it, though, is to new up a dark old project. Let's go WinForms. Classic desktop. Classic desktop. I always love these euphemisms Microsoft has. It's not deprecated, it's not retired, it's not old, it's classic. Alright, so in the dark old days of graphic interface programming, we've always used event handlers. Right? You drag something onto your design, and then you double click on it. It generates you an event handler, and then from within that event handler, you have like on button up, on button down, and you manage that state manually yourself. It's quite easy to hang yourself very fast, because what starts off with a simple button is just really simple to work with, and then all of a sudden, as you add more and more controls to your actual application, it make managing that state very, very hard. So last night I installed DevExpress as part of a demonstration for the end of the project, and it seems to me that it's punishing me right now. And it's the first time loading this assembly. So apologies for that. That might take a little bit. So while that loads, let's look at some theory. Instead of using event handlers on mouse button up, mouse button down, on double click, on enter, on a control, we can actually convert them into a sequence. And if you've never seen it before, Lee Campbell's website, Intro to RX, it turns out he's in Perth now, which is really surprised because I'm in Perth. So took him out for beers last week. He's looking for people to help convert this over to Markdown. Shifty started converting this over to Markdown. There's a almost done, like 80-90% fork done of converting this to Markdown. So if you want to help out the community, help Lee out, and just generally help out reactive programming, submit a pull help with the pull request to convert this to Markdown. That way, anyone can just submit a pull request to keep it updated, because some of the content is very applicable, but it references reactive extensions 1.0 is out. Right? So there's some things that need updating. But if you want to help out, go here. So a sequence, if you think about a keyboard up or keyboard down, there's effectively like a sequence of events. And you can use this really cool thing of observable from event pattern. An observable from event pattern will convert an event handler into a sequence of events of that type of event. So if you've got a window or a control with key up or key down, you have a sequence of key events if you convert the key up event into an observable, which is really cool. So this is the dark old way of doing development, and people still do this pattern now in Xamarin Forms in 2017, and it's productive at first, but you end up hanging yourself because you can't really compose that together. So there is a better way. There is a better way.
Just so you know, Jeffrey, I think the video's lagging by about, I don't know, 15 seconds for me. I'm not sure if it's doing that for everyone.
All right,
It's for me as well.
Thank you. I've got very bad internet here. If
You might want to try to turn off your camera feeds to save some bandwidth.
Yeah, good call. Hello. There we go. Right, so you have WinForms as an example, and we have event handlers. And these event handlers, we're still using them in 2017. So there is a better way. So introducing Reactive UI Events. Events is a separate NuGet package. And it has the word Reactive UI in it, but it's got really nothing to do with Reactive UI. We've actually thought about splitting it out of the project because it's got such utility. It's a tool for automatically generating events from event handlers, and it uses mono and a bit of reflection to mono-sessile and a bit of reflection to make that happen. But before we go into the internals, the better way. So we've got essentially here a WPF application, which is file new project. Nothing that special about it. If I look at the packages configuration, you'll notice that Reactive UI Events is installed. Now, what I'm about to show you will only work if you have the Reactive UI Events package installed for your platform. So for all platforms except for Xamarin Forms and WinForms, the package is called Reactive UI Events. For other platforms, it has Reactive UI Events hyphen WinForms or hyphen Xamarin Forms. And the reason we have to split out like this is because of NuGet targeting. I'll get into that a little bit, but it's pretty hard to determine if someone targets Net45 as something is WinForms or it's WPF. So I've actually thought about splitting this package out and removing WPF from this package and making it a separate package so it's explicit opt-in. That way if you don't, when you're installing and using this, you don't get confused. That's something I'm thinking about for the next release. Right, so once Reactive UI Events is installed, you get a cool little extension method. So anytime you have a control or a control for your platform that emits an event handler, you have this.events off it. So if I was to drag a button in, I would get a sequence of events that is possible for a button, automatically converted from event handlers into observables, which is super cool. demo, I'll show you something. I know this. It's the Konami code. It's a sequence of events, a sequence of keystrokes or game button presses you used to do on a game controller to unlock a secret mode in an application. So here, I've defined an array of keystrokes, and then I convert those keystrokes into an observable sequence. The line 20, I've got my key code, my sequence of keys. Line 35 onwards, I'm converting it into a sequence. Now, line 38 is where it gets interesting. This is where we're using reactive UI events. So I'm saying anytime there's a key up event on the main window, because I haven't specified control and I'm specifying this is referring to the main window. I want to select the key code, and anytime the key is pressed, I want to emit, like a kind of inspect what has actually happened. And this is a do operator is really cool because it has no side effects. You can actually look in the pipeline without causing side effects. So if you want to debug something, use do. So if I go up, you actually see as it's working through this. One of the operators in a sequence is window. So what I'm saying here is batch together the sequence of the last 10 keys into a window of 10 keys. And then I'm going to compare the sequence that's just happened, that window of keystrokes. And I'm going to compare them against my, compare that sequence against my Konami codes. Now sequence equal, how that works is it looks for if it matches from a observable basis, so the keys, the right keys are entered in the right sequence, but it also checks if the observable terminates, has the same termination properties. It won't equal if it doesn't have the same termination properties. That's a pro tip, by the way. And then I then restrict that down to say only where we match. And if we do match, we've got the sequence. So let's try this. Up, up, down, down, left, right, A, B. Done. We have our sequence. So the cool thing here is, in this very contrived and simple example, I'm just listening to the keys, the key up event, and I'm composing the key up event on the main window. But if you've got a weird user requirement that says, when someone is typing keys in my entire application, but the user's mouse is on a green patch, or the color is green, you could compose those two rules together as two sequences and compose them together with a where and a select. And it's much more maintainable, much more testable, whereas event handlers, they're not really testable. So this is really cool. And in this example, it's really contrived. A lot of code is actually in the application, or a lot of this code you could push to the cross-platform, like the business logic for the key codes, you could push that to the view model. And so you get even more portability. So you can actually even just have this, so it's just emitting the key codes or pushing the last keys back to the view model, and that instead of doing a subscribe down here, I could make it, we have an extension called, I could bind this to a reactive command. So really cool. So the internals of events is what I personally learned going through this is reactive UI events is I kind of want to split it out from the main repository, but I don't, because it makes it easier to release a new version of software. So I prefer to keep it in it for as long as possible. I thought about it. So let's look at the internals of the project. Based off some of the work Ollie's done as well, is we have our target definitions for each framework that we're going to be using, Reactive Ui Events. And at its core, all Reactive Ui Events is a target condition and conditionally including a file. You'll notice iOS, UWP, Android, and Mac. So when this when Reactive UI compiles, or the Reactive UI Events package compiles, it's actually when it targets this platform, it will include this file, and then it will package it. It automatically create a package for iOS that includes this file. Now, by default, when you clone Reactive UI, these files don't exist on the file system. That's because they're generated. There's an open pull request by Kent about the notion of should we conditionally include these so when you first compile, you don't see an error about missing files. I think it's a pretty good idea, Kent. We'll probably go for it. So inside these files, is the observable from event pattern. So Reactive UI Events is essentially a code generator. What it does is it actually inspects an assembly that you pass to it, and it goes through it and goes, what are all the event args that are known in this assembly, and then it has a list of garbage event handlers, and they get ignored. But anything that doesn't exist in that garbage list gets automatically generated using Nustash, which is just a templating thing, and it generates this file. So when you're actually running a build, when you run the build command file, this build command file invokes cake. And one of the things cake does is it generates these files. Well, it's kind of a lie. It does generate the file, but it's not like you think. Because Reactive UI Events is composed of the event builder. And the event builder takes a platform, and that platform will generate out an event file. But the file name here is net45, events net45. Event Builder knows nothing about the file name. That's just a convention, because how Event Builder works there we go. How Event Builder works is it takes a platform argument and it outputs the content to SDOut. And it has different platforms. So when I specify net45 here, what it's doing is it's looking at our reference assemblies. Ever seen this before? It's a really interesting area of .NET. So when you install Xamarin on your computer, one of the things it does is installs reference assembly. So when you press compile on a project, have you ever noticed that you have you don't take it like a direct reference to like system.object or any of those assemblies provided by Microsoft, or likewise for Xamarin. That's because they live here. When I say net45, when I run Event Builder, what it's actually doing is coming over here into the reference assemblies and it's looking through all of the reference assemblies to find one as an event handler. But in this case, for this convention of net45, it doesn't go through all, it just goes through presentation core. So when you run Event Builder with net45, what it's actually doing is going to the reference assemblies installed on your local computer and opening up presentation framework.dll, looking at all the event handlers within it, and then code generating out to SDOut. So what the build script does is it has a little func, and this func is generate, and what it does is just spawns a new process. And so pending here on line 36, my platform identifiers. So in this case over here, platform net45, and the platform is actually an argument that's passed into the func. So if I go down a little bit, you see this. So each one of the platforms that Reactive UI builds for, it runs this little func, and it says whereabouts to actually save the resulting output for the platform. So for Android, it would be looking at V7 or V6 or V7. I would have to look at the source code, but it's just looking at the reference assemblies. It's pretty cool.
Was there any particular challenge to getting those reference assemblies available on AppVeyor?
They're just there. Normally, Ollie had a little bit of issues with VS 2017. I haven't experienced them, but AppVeyor, I don't know, it's because they run in the community version of Visual Studio.
The difficulty we had was just where they are, so they moved between 2015 and 2017. But on 2017, with the right workloads installed, they're just somewhere, and they're just reachable.
Okay. I remember. By the way, this was really cool. VS Where. This is really cool. That was really great to learn about. Thanks, Ollie.
Yeah, that's another one of those. See what happens and it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's actually the package made officially by Microsoft that goes, where is Visual Studio installed? Because it all changed in 2017. You can have multiple versions of Visual Studio loaded side by side. Like you could have alpha channel and production channel like running side by side, and also the same thing, you can complicate that by having alpha and stable for enterprise and community side by side. So you could have like 12 different versions of Visual Studio installed. So Microsoft made this package for people like us to go, where is Visual Studio? Okay, so the internals of Event Viewer. Let's stay at net45. So there's some terrible code here. And by default, when you specify net45 as command line argument, all it's really doing is it's like an alias, and it's shortcutting whereabouts these assemblies are located. And for each platform, it's there. Now, Event Builder will work on Mono, and there is absolutely no reason why you couldn't run Event Viewer on a Mac. Like if you're running on Bitrise, it just comes down to time, and you would need to package these assemblies up into a NuGet package or even a zip file, and because it just works on Windows, I just haven't put the time to bring it across. But I don't think I ever will, because it's just, I don't want to take the burden of maintaining and packaging up SDK versions just so we can compile a Mac. So if you want the default these targets, like for Net45 and the rest, just use the binary feed or run it on a Windows machine and copy and paste the resulting class file. Otherwise, you can use this on Mac for custom platforms perfectly fine. So an example of this would be one of the arguments Event Builder takes is a platform of none. And this is probably, this needs to be documented better, but it's super cool. What this has just done, it's gone through the Dev Express assembly and generated out my observables. So yeah, if you use Syncfusion, Dev Express, or you get an assembly from a third-party component manufacturer, you can run event generator to automatically generate out observables or sequences from their event handlers. So this is like super cool, and you can run this on Mac. There's nothing stopping you from running this from Mac. So if you're on OS X and you want to, for some reason, you're working with Dev Express, you could just go specify the name of the parameter, actually, because it's OS X, you can run mono in front of it. It'll just run, and it outputs to SDOut, so it's just a matter of piping it. So it's the internals of how Event Builder works. Super cool. Something I haven't talked about is targeting too much. We'll start with Xamarin Forms. Okay. In here in the Event Builder, we actually have a platform for Xamarin Forms. Now this is this interesting platform because it's not a reference assembly. There are no reference assemblies for Xamarin Forms. It's a NuGet package. So when you specify Xamarin Forms, what it's actually doing is it's actually running the NuGet client. I brought in the NuGet SDK, and we actually download the latest version. Now this is a good thing and a bad thing. It means that every time we do a new release of Reactive UI, it's essentially downloading and generating the events for Reactive UI Events to the latest version, and we don't need to do anything, and that's great. The bad news is this is essentially an unpinned dependency in our CI, and it's a point that could fail if for some reason Xamarin was to publish an event handler that like it's not they do a bad release or some event handler. But considering we release every couple of weeks, not like a couple times a day, I'm not really that concerned. But it is a moving part. It's not stable. It is the best way to look at it. It's out of everything in the entire infrastructure for like the build pipeline, this is the only section in the pipeline that's not immutable. This is mutable. Every time you run it, you can get a different result depending on if a new version has been released. So,
what would that mean in practice though? Would it only matter if you actually dotted into that event? Because that's when the JIT occurs.
yeah, it only really matters for that event. So what this means is if Xamarin generates out, so Xamarin exposes a new control or a new series of events, then those events will automatically appear and are now made available to us in the next version of Reactive UI or Reactive UI Events. So the risk is if you're running an old version of Xamarin Forms and this generates a event handlers for something you don't know about, it will expose it, but you won't know what to do with it. But
right,
yeah. Typically, the recommendation for Xamarin Forms, because it's moving so fast, is stay towards the stage towards latest as much as possible. Not latest, but like -1 version. So something to keep an eye on, Kent. This is all this logic. I probably should pin it, actually, thinking about it a little bit more, because I look at I probably should pin it instead of going latest for one reason. Because my package reference is pinned. So Xamarin Forms, I take a package version of 2.3, etc. But my the events that I'm linking against is my events that I generate off is unpinned. So that could be coming from 2.4 or it could be 2.5. So if for some reason it was to break, we would get early indication it would break here. Like the Reactive UI Events Xam Forms package would be unable to build.
Yeah, it does feel like the Reactive UI Events Xam Forms package should be versioned the same as the Xamarin Forms version that it's consuming.
Yeah, it's probably we could probably now with this new package, new 2017 packaging, specify it as an environment variable.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that, because in the future, we're going to be adding a new platform. I was apprehensive at first of the idea of adding Tizen to Reactive UI. We've always been about supporting all of .NET's platforms, and if Tizen required me to install an emulator on the build host, I probably wouldn't have done it, even though we do that for Android, because it would just take so long to download and configure it. But I was pleasantly surprised to learn that Tizen is actually a collection of NuGet packages that target NetStandard 1.3. So if you want to generate events or create a framework that targets Tizen, all you need to do is add the NuGet reference. That's it. There's no SDK junk. You just add the NuGet reference. So the same pattern we use here at line 74 would be literally just copying and pasting this to say Tizen. And we would get Tizen support for Reactive UI Events for free, in essence. But I agree we should pin that. And then, because I will have the same problem with Tizen. It's moving really fast. One is pinned lower, but the event generator is pinned higher.
Yeah. I guess the other wider question here is, should we be working towards having this whole events thing as part of, I don't know, maybe a separate project, or maybe actually part of Reactive Extensions itself? Because it is, like you say, nothing to do with Reactive UI.
I'd be supportive of moving it out of Reactive UI and as it being its own separate thing, except having it inline into Reactive UI means it's easier to maintain in the sense that, like, to release a new version, if we go through System Reactive, we'd need to speak to Oren about how he feels about, like, releasing every couple of weeks. I don't think he can do that. So it's good to be separated from Microsoft's release cycle, and and there is a kind of direct, like, linkage behind Reactive UI and Reactive UI events behind the scenes, but at the front of it, it's not really. So maybe we can just fix it with marketing. Thus, this video. The main thing is people learning that you can generate using custom assemblies, like components from Syncfusion or DevExpress, etc.
Right.
Ooh, this is interesting. Packaging and targeting WinForms versus WPF. So it's something I haven't covered yet. I'm thinking of making a breaking change in V8. I'm not sure yet. I have to think about this. Is right now the event generator event builder takes a identifier of platform, but it's kind of wrong. If I do minus platform, it's not generating net45. Well, it is. It's looking at net45 assemblies for WPF. So that means if you have a Windows Form application, and they do exist, and we actually see quite a few tickets that are more than I was ever expected on Windows Forms. It turns out people use Reactive UI with WinForms because that makes WinForms fun, because WinForms is typically not fun. But the problem is here, the event builder assumes net45 is WPF. And in a WinForms project, you don't have a reference to presentation call. So line 13. So the identifier is net45, and it makes this terrible thing saying net45 is WPF, WinForms doesn't exist. So this has a couple of implications. Is from a packaging point of view, I can only target a package for net45 for one. I can only resolve it to when you install a package, it resolves what platform am I for. So I can't have a package with net45 WinForms and net45 WPF in the same package. It just won't work. There's no way for the user to decide which one to go. That's why we need to split it into different packages. So the breaking change I'm thinking of doing is splitting this out. So we have a WPF platform, a WinForms platform, platforms for the event builder, but then on the packaging level, this is where it becomes a breaking change. I'm not sure if it should be breaking, but I think we should be creating WinForms package. That's not breaking. So we now have a reactive UI events .winforms, and that allows you to target WinForms when you're in WinForms. We have this convention in the project for Xamarin Forms, and we'll have this convention again for Tizen. Now, the breaking change is, right now WPF is in reactive UI events, and you get that for free. I'm thinking of removing Net45 from reactive UI events completely and making a separate package called reactiveui-events.wpf. So it's kind of like food for thought.
Would you also, is the goal here to like completely deprecate reactive UI events and then split out everything from that, or are you still going to have reactive UI events with like Net45 stuff in there?
Reactive UI events would no longer have Net45. It would have iOS, Android, and other platforms that are simple to target.
Would it make more sense to just split everything out? Because that way it's kind of consistent.
Yeah, it hasn't occurred to me, but that'd make sense as well. If we're going down this path, it would definitely make sense to be consistent. And it's pretty easy to do. The only downside of doing this is we'll see a proliferation of like these folders, but that's and a project. But under this new project structure, it's actually really cool. So I wouldn't really fret too much over that.
Yeah.
I think it's possibly possible, but we could do it under one CS prod. That's something I've been trying to play with. Which then means that it's...
What I found, Ollie, and it's terrible, is this. You can only have one package. I found you can only have one package identifier, but maybe if you conditioned it, if you did it like on a condition, did it as a conditional off the target framework, maybe you could have two.
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering, is if we can do a conditional target, a conditional package ID off that, but then like mapping XAM forms to net standard and like getting the compiler to behave is just a bit painful. But I feel like that solves for the only downside of this, which is loads of project files.
Yeah. I would trade lots of project files for simplicity, because it's less for someone who's never touched this before. But if we can make it simple, I'd definitely go into a single. But
yeah, I'll keep playing with that.
Appreciate it. That's kind of it. That's kind of what I had to show. Any other particular questions? And if you have proposals of stuff you'd like to know about, or you'd like to share something you've been working on, just submit a proposal to the Meetup section. We now have the new